Who you calling moron?
All right, everyone, warm up those brains. It's time once again for the Get More Smarter podcast. This one here is episode 245. I'm Jason Bain.
I'm Ian Silveria. This week on the Get More Smarter podcast, the 2026 primary field for Colorado Democrats up and down the ticket is getting crowded. We've got a big announcement for you on what that means for the podcast. Then, are you a human being with a body and skin, organs, stuff like that needs occasional tending to? Well, your healthcare is about to get a lot more expensive, and most likely, not much better. Next, Schrödinger's Epstein files are the scandal of the decade. Or they don't exist. Or maybe both, depending on who you talk to. But one thing is for sure, Donald J. Trump is absolutely in them. Then, do recissions cause recessions? We're about to find out, unfortunately. And Big Bird and your local public radio station are on the chopping block because of it. Finally, in a country that has seen some progress on fighting gerrymandering and making elections and democracy more fair, representative, and reflective of the will of the people, one party in one state says, to hell with all that shit, we want power. Can you guess who it is? Can you?
I think I can, but I won't spoil it.
Well, you wrote the outline, so I know you know.
Oh, right. Damn it. Well, let's start. Before we get into some of that other national stuff, let's start right here in Colorado with more 2026 election updates and a bunch of fundraising numbers.
Yeah, we've got new numbers for Secretary of State, Treasurer, congressional races, governor, Attorney General, U.S. Senate, and other things too.
I wish we had dog catcher, just because that would be
as
fun.
An elected position. I wonder, is that... There. I mean, there's got to be a place, right?
There's that joke, right? That you wouldn't win an election for dog catcher or whatever. I wonder if anyone has that.
I think there are elected dog catchers in this country. I believe that is the case.
I'll have to investigate. So we've got a couple of new candidates, sort of new, I guess. State Senator Jessie Danielson, when she was on the show in, I think, April, talked about her interest in running for Secretary of State. She made it official.
Yeah, you heard it here first. She teased her potential candidacy here on the podcast. Back then, we were talking about the Worker Protection Act. Great episode.
And Jessica Killen, who we've talked about as a candidate in Congressional District 5 to unseat
listeners might
Jeff
remember.
Frank.
She is Doug Emhoff, second gentleman, Kamala Harris's husband's former chief of staff. She is apparently from Colorado Springs and is now running and jumped in with quite a splash. We'll talk more about that in a minute.
And the other candidate I wanted to mention, Alex Keloff in the 3rd Congressional District. We've talked about him a little bit here and there, but recently he's been picking up some endorsements. He's raised some decent money. Endorsements from the likes of former Congressman John Salazar, former candidate Sol Sandoval, kind of making it seem like whether or not he's our best option, he might be the Democratic candidate here in the 3rd.
Thing I noticed about Alex, his logo, or at least the one I saw, just says protect public lands. I thought that was really smart.
Yeah.
Insofar as you can have a smart logo. And it made me coin a phrase. Do you remember what I called it?
No, I don't.
A slogo. Where you have a slogan on your logo. It's got the first slogo of 2026.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Don't groan at me.
Trademark that, baby.
Yeah, slogo. Let's go.
All right, let's start on the fundraising side because the July 15th reporting period, well, the second quarter reporting period ended at the end of June, but as of July 15th, we finally have numbers. We'll start statewide with the race for governor, and we'll talk a little. I'm going to mostly talk about the Democratic side because Ian is conflicted here because he's helping out Phil Weiser.
Important Silveria disclaimer, working for Phil, want him to be governor. Also like Bennett, but, strong preference over here.
So far through the first 6 months of the year, Weiser has raised almost $3 million, has about $2.5 million in the bank. Senator Michael Bennet has raised $1.74 million, has about $1.3 million in the bank. It's good news for Weiser, who is, has been at this longer than Bennet on the governor's race, but still is raising a good chunk of money. And as we always say here, and as I always say privately, fundraising is about expressing support in a lot of ways, particularly early. And what this shows is that there are a lot of people who are still looking at this race as a very much a toss-up race between Weiser and Bennett for the Democratic nomination.
If I may put my disclaimed and somewhat conflicted thumb on the scale here slightly, I think what I'll say is a lot of folks thought that Bennett would clear the field. Phil's not going anywhere. A lot of folks thought that Bennett would come in and raise a lot more money right away. That's clearly not the case. We got ourselves a ball game, and that's a good thing. Voters deserve a choice in this race, and they're going to get one. Voters deserve a competitive race in this instance, and they're going to get one. I think that's really, really good.
On the Republican side, I think there's like 15, 16 different people running, most of whom are just gadfly weirdos.
And what YouTube viewers will see right now is the top 4 fundraisers that are all really equally pathetic, and this is the best of the bunch.
The candidate who raised the most money of these 4 is Scott Bottoms, a representative from Colorado Springs, who raised just under $35,000, which is
like not
nothing.
A very good quarter for a state representative race like Scott Bottoms.
No. Bottoms also spent 31 grand, so he's got all of $9,000 in the bank.
One must wonder what he spent that on, but I do not care enough to look.
The one that really cracks me up is State Senator Mark Baisley from Roxborough Park, a Republican who announced his intentions to run, I think, October of 2024.
We famously said, this ain't going to happen.
No, and it's still not going to happen. He's got about not quite $2,500 in the bank. That's not good.
No, that's not going to do it. That's not enough for a governor's race. That's not enough for a state legislative race. That's not enough for a dog catcher race.
No, there are maybe some small towns you could get elected to the council with that amount of money, but that's about it. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the other statewide races. Attorney General is the one that's the most crowded with all plausible candidates, let's say.
That's true. That's a good way to put it. All plausible candidates.
There, at this point, still, there are just 5 Democrats running. Secretary of State
and
Jenna
no Republicans have even announced. Is that right, or do we just
no Republicans have even hinted yet at this?
That I'm aware of. It's so fucking weird to be somebody who has done politics here for so long, because it was never the case that the Attorney General's race, especially, was a foregone conclusion for Democrats. That was when Ken Salazar won that, it was like, oh my God, Democrats can win this race in Colorado. It's a huge deal. Mm-hmm. And then for the first decade of my career here, we could not do it until Phil Weiser won in 2018.
Yeah. Republican John Suthers replaced Salazar, and he ended up serving the longest term, I think, of any Attorney General in Colorado history. So, it has been mostly Republicans for a long time. On the Democratic side, Jenna Griswold leads the fundraising pack, which is no surprise given that she's the one with the highest name ID. She's the only one.
And she's the current statewide elected official of the bunch, too. So credit
That's
where
right.
it's due. She's running a great race. I mean, on the nuts and bolts, on the fundamentals, she's raised $800,000. I think that was a record when she posted it at the time. And good on her. This is and importantly, and we'll talk about this a bunch throughout this conversation, I'm sure, her burn rate, which is the ratio of the amount of money she spent to the amount of money she still has on hand, is very, very low. She raised $800,000. She still has about $700,000 in the bank.
Yeah. The cash on hand number is the one that's more important now. I think reporters and journalists need to get away from talking about how much money a candidate has raised, because with a lot of the pump and dump online fundraising, it's kind of meaningless in a lot of ways. Right. So, we've got some other examples of that, and we'll talk about in a minute. The other candidates, Hedel Doshi and David Seligman, are raising pretty decent amounts of money.
And not spending very much of it either. I mean, to their credit, Hedel Doshi raised $363 and has $346 in the bank. Seligman raised $400,000 and has $324 in the bank. So that's really good spending discipline on both of their counts.
And Boulder County District Attorney Michael Doherty, he's been in the race the longest.
Friend of the pod,
probably needs to pick up the pace quite a bit. He's got $190,000 in the bank, and this is a race that's going to be decided in a Democratic primary, and people that primary, who's in that primary, is probably going to largely be determined by the assembly, the state assembly. So there's a certain amount of money you need to have just to be in the competition by next spring.
Yeah, and I mean, there's two ways to get on the ballot in Colorado. You can either go through the state assembly, and if three candidates split the, support essentially evenly, they all three can get through that way. But I think some of the higher raisers like Griswold and Seligman may consider going the petition route, which guarantees you a spot on the ballot, but it is more expensive. You have to get signatures equivalent to, I think, like 10% of the last time they ran a statewide race with the highest turnout or whatever it is. It's not an inexpensive proposition. Some of the signature campaigns are a couple $100,000 to $1 million, but you must get on the ballot or else the whole game is over.
That's right. And then former House Speaker Crisanta Duran, who we've been saying is not really going anywhere, proved that. She's got $11,000 in the bank. She's done.
Yeah, it is probably unwise to continue going in this race at this moment because it's just clear the support is not there.
Yeah, it's just not there. Also not doing well in the state treasurer's race, former or current Jefferson County Treasurer Jerry DiTullio reported raising $31,000 in the last quarter. He's got $58,000 in the bank. But
I want to draw viewers' attention to this little asterisk you put down here at the bottom, because we had heard a rumor that DiTullio had raised something like $250,000 or $300,000. And it turns out raised would be a very strong way of making that claim, because he loaned his campaign $299,000 and repaid $238,000 of it. Good on you, Jason, for noticing that in the reports.
And that tells me that he is paying himself back now because he's realizing this probably isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, I still think he sticks it out because it's a low cost, no cost proposition, because he's termed out of this county treasurer's office. But to catch, Titone and Bridges at this point is going to be.
He's not going to make the ballot. State Senator Jeff Bridges, the leading fundraiser this quarter, with $170,000. State Rep Brianna Titone at $85,000. These are not huge numbers, but for a race for state treasurer, they're fine.
Yeah, let's face it. The state treasurer is not going to be the barn burner race that we've got here in 2026, attracting all the support and attention. But between Senator Bridges and Representative Titone, you have two very interesting candidates with interesting profiles and backgrounds who have expertise on fiscal issues, either of whom I think would make a great state treasurer. But we're going to let them fight it out and see what happens.
And still no Republican in that race.
Unreal. Absolutely insane stuff. Yep. Remember, Walker Stapleton, who was the opponent against Jared Polis in 2018, was a 2-term state treasurer and used it as a platform to launch himself into the nomination for that seat. It's insane how uncompetitive these have become.
The same is true of the race for Secretary of State, where there's no Republican. We mentioned Jesse Danielson, the state senator, joined this race after the reporting period. So the only numbers we have are from Jefferson County Clerk and Recorder Amanda Gonzalez. She raised $100,000 or so in the last quarter, now has $34,000.
So that's a pretty high burn rate because the numbers are easy. It's about a 70% burn rate, right? 100K, spent 70. Yeah,
she's had a head start.
Head start, but that is a very high burn rate, which will need to come down, especially because Senator Danielson has been elected to the state house, I think 3 times, state senate, I think twice, prolific fundraiser, hard worker. This is going to be a race, but if Gonzalez doesn't pick up the pace here, I think Danielson might lap her pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take advantage of that 6-month head start that Gonzalez had, and she didn't.
I think she announced on January 6th, if I'm not mistaken, as sort of a thematic way, right?
Yep. And, to have $34,000 in the bank 6 months later is not good. No. All right, on the federal side, the race for U.S. Senate, to the extent that it actually is one, and it really won't be, Senator John Hickenlooper. Senator Mike. Senator John Hickenlooper, friend of the pod, added another $1.5 million in the second quarter, giving him
4.7. Is that what?
About 4.7 raised. As we mentioned last week, Republicans finally have a candidate there, Janet Joshi, the former state representative from Colorado Springs, disgraced former doctor. He's not going to win.
They're going to have to do a little better than Joshi if they want to try and even pretend like this is a race.
And I'm not sure they will. I'm not sure they'll bother.
After they all got their asses kicked and humiliated by Bennett in 22 during the Joe O'Dea debacle, I kind of think it stretches credibility. Is it credulity to imagine that Colorado's U.S. Senate race is remotely competitive, especially with John Hickenlooper on the top of the ticket? The guy's an institution. It's not going to happen.
He is, and he beat an incumbent senator in Cory Gardner by 9 points last time he was on the ballot.
Yeah, that's like thanks for playing stuff.
Yeah. The other big numbers federally are from the 8th Congressional District. Before we get started on this, I think it's important to remind people that these numbers are more about the Democratic primary, because once we get to a general election in the fall of 2026, there's going to be a ton of outside money for both the Republican and Democratic candidates.
This is something that people, this is something that people are not counting right now. I think I saw some NRCC press release that's like, Gabe Evans dominates the field. Between the independent spending, between the grassroots money, and between whoever gets through this primary, their coffers are going to get refilled just fine right away. It's not going to be a problem. Yeah. It's going to be an even race for money by the time it matters between next June and next November.
So incumbent Gabe Evans, the Republican, he's raised about $838,000 in the last quarter, giving him about $1.5 million in the bank. Those are good numbers. That's about
right. If you're a top 5, top 10 congressional race in the country, raising $1 million a quarter is sort of what you're expected to do. He's just shy of that. We do not have very many kind words for Gabish Evans on this podcast, but what we will say is that he is doing his job in terms of raising money. And like we discussed either last episode or the one before that, this includes about $200,000 in payoff money from Speaker Mike Johnson for all the votes he took to support the agenda.
The top Democrat of the 5 candidates running, Shannon Byrd, raised about $447,000 in the quarter, has about $373,000 in the bank. Those are good numbers.
Pretty good ratio, good discipline. Yep.
Manny Rutinel, who was the first candidate in this race, raised about $400,000, giving him $810,000 in the bank, but his burn rate's not great.
I will say, and not yet friend of the pod, but fan of the pod, Representative Rutinelli, yes, that's true, but the cash on hand advantage of $500,000 is also impressive, and that's going to be hard to catch for an increasingly crowded field. We will talk about the fact that this is not even the entirety of the Democratic field as of yesterday before we're recording this, but let's keep going.
Right. So Rutinel raised about $416,000, but he spent $263,000. He's going to need to tighten that up. Former Congresswoman Yadira Caraveo is in big trouble.
Friend of the pod.
She raised $214,000 and spent $122,000, giving her $92,000 in the bank, which is just not going to cut it.
Just look at the difference between the delta between that and Byrd, the delta between that and Rutinel, and even though we agree that the money is going to come in no matter what, $92,000 to $1.5 million is just a very, very, very large gulf to close. I'm not sure how that's going to happen. We have a lot of love and respect for Dr. Caraveo. We supported her throughout 2024, really wanted her to win, would have supported her if she were in there right now. She's got to think really hard about if this is something that she really still wants to do.
Yeah, what this says is that despite her name ID, despite the connections she still probably has from her one term in Congress, people just aren't interested in backing her with their checks right now.
I think it's just also the crowded field. I mean, there's a lot of other people in this race. They're staking out lanes. They have the shiny new candidate thing going on, and the two donors, the base level argument has to be, I'm the one who can beat Gabe Evans. And since there's only one person on this list who so far has been proven that they did not the one time they faced him, it's a tough sell. And again, like I say, this with all the love and respect in the world. If she's the nominee, we will work our asses off for her. But I do think she's got to think about, whether or not this is something she actually wants to do.
And then State Treasurer Dave Young raised only about $75,000. However, he's been in the race. He was in the race for less than a month before the last fundraising period. he gets a little bit of a pass, but he's going to
I
have
also
to
got to
really
give
do
him
better.
credit because I ended up on his call time list the day the report posted. And
Nice.
he called me and he made the pitch, and I told him we're staying out of it for a variety of reasons. We like a lot of these people. They're all our friends, and, we're going to support the nominee, whoever they are. But good old Dave Young, hustling, grinding out the phones. And you're right. He's been in the race the shortest, I think, of the field here, right?
Yeah, so he gets a little bit of a pass, but he's going to have to really up his game in the next quarter.
That's right.
The one candidate who I think is going to have a real tough conversation is Amy Baca Olert. She raised only $57,000, has 29 grand in the bank. That's already a huge hole to climb out of.
I mean, she's a first-time candidate. The rest of these folks have run for office and won before, so she doesn't have a fundraising list. She's starting from scratch. But if she's claiming to be the sort of progressive people's champion, getting working families party endorsements and potentially some conflicts and that sort of thing right out the gate, I mean, this isn't demonstrating that at all. So, she's got a great profile. I think, there's a lot to like about a former teachers union president running in a race that's going to be about, among other things, the dismantling of the Department of Education. But I agree with you. This number is not going to do it. This puts her in league with the Scott Bottoms and Janet Joshis of the world. And if we're going to apply that logic there, we got to apply it here too.
Yep. And then quickly, we'll go through a couple of other notes in the other reports. In the 3rd Congressional District, the bread sandwich, Jeff Hurd is doing what he needs to be doing, raising about 760 grand. He's got 1.1 million in the bank.
Most importantly, 1.1 million in the bank. And most importantly, he's using this giant wall of money to fend off a primary challenge from Hope Scheppelman, a dangerous lunatic running around the 3rd Congressional District, who was only able to muster $38,000, although spending discipline points for that, only spent $7, got 30 in the bank. But again, delta between $30,000 and $1.2 million is big, and that's not going to happen. Jeff Hurd's going to be the nominee in all extreme likelihood. And like we talked about, we've got a Democrat in that race as well.
Yeah, and Alex Keloff raised $427,000, has $355,000 in the bank. Those are good numbers for.
That's not what we call frish money, but it's also not nothing. So,
No, I mean, that puts you on track. That's where you need to be, at least.
Yeah, that means, remember, Hurd's in like a +8, +9 district, CD3. Adam Frisch was able to get it within less than a point in 2022. Lauren Boebert hauled her ass out to a different district. Jeff Hurd got in there and won pretty handily by about the performance of the district. But that was before he voted to cut rural health care. That was before he voted to cut, food stamps and SNAP benefits for hungry kids and veterans and elderly folks and all this stuff. So if the political environment shifts, 5 to 10 points, and then Alex has enough resources to communicate, Jeff Hurd's the reason why your health insurance premium's going up, your mom got kicked off of Medicaid, and the hungry kids in your kid's school can't get a food at the food bank anymore, this could be a race. So keep your eye on CD.
And the other issue that I want to bring up that has increasingly been bothering you and I both, and we've talked about it some on the show, but the pump and dump online fundraising stuff. Too many people are spending too much money on fundraising consultants and not getting a lot out of it. For example, there's a candidate in the 4th Congressional District named Eileen Lawbacker. I don't know anything about her.
She's a rear admiral.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She's the rear admiral.
Yeah.
She raised $1.9 million in the last quarter, but spent $836,000.
Yeah, I mean, I'll push back in this instance because she still has $1 million in the bank as a result of that. So, I agree with you that there are plenty of times where, that doesn't pencil out and you end up spending, but she net $1 million off that program. Yes, it cost $1 million, but she raised $2 million. So she still has $1 million in the bank, which I think importantly is a lot more than Lauren Boebert has in the bank. Were you surprised by her lackluster fundraising this quarter?
I think it fits exactly with everything she did in the last 2 years. She moved to the 4th Congressional District because it's the safest Republican district in the state. Her fundraising, I think, reflects that. She doesn't need as much money as she used to need. And so her fundraising, she raised about $137,000. That's not good, but she doesn't need it.
We'll see. Look, I mean, you're probably right. The odds are that the most conservative, I think it's R+22 district in the state, she will probably get to hold it with minimal effort. But having a candidate like Laubacher, who's got a military background, even though we discussed last time that may or may not matter depending on where you are and who you are, with $1 million in the bank to 175,000, I think it'll at least be fun to watch.
Yeah. But I do want to make sure that people continue to start talking more about the cash on hand numbers, not the amount raised. Manny Rudin, as we talked about earlier. Yeah. He's raised $1.6 million in 6 months, but he's spent half of it on fundraising consultants. So again, I don't think this is great for fundraising for Democrats in general, because eventually people start to think, all right, what are you doing with the money I'm giving you?
It is great, however, for fundraising consultants who have their contracts as a percentage of the money raised.
Indeed.
Talk a little bit about CD5 before we move on. Jeff Crank, incumbent, raised about $280,000, has about $430,000 in the bank. That's par for the course, sort of. You're not in a really super competitive race.
Right.
But what is very interesting is that Jessica Killen, who we talked about earlier in the show and also on previous episodes, announced without filing that she raised $750,000 in the first day of fundraising. So again, if the environment moves 10 points, this thing could come into focus. We have yet to see that proved to us in any meaningful way. But if a former Kamala Harris husband staffer can make Jeff Crank sleep less well at night, as if the votes he's taking isn't already doing that to him, go fucking get him.
Absolutely.
So now I want to talk a little bit about what this means for you and us and the show. We are going to put together what we're calling, working title, the Get More Smarter primary, in which case we are planning on interviewing every viable, and that will not be an objective standard, that will be a completely and 100% totally subjective standard.
Yep.
Judged by Jason and me only.
Our show.
We'll be interviewing
we get
to do it. Yeah, sorry. We're not news. We're not the Denver Post. We're not Colorado Public Radio. We don't have to be fair, and we're not.
Yeah,
but if you are a viable candidate for any of the competitive congressional races, any of the statewide races, treasurer, SOS, or attorney general, we're going to invite you on the show to come and have an interview. We're thinking about whether we're going to try this out and pilot it as our first live stuff. So we might be on YouTube Live, Substack Live. We're thinking about whether we're technologically equipped and competent enough to do that. And we're not really sure yet. But what we can promise you is you're going to have a lot of interviews from a lot of candidates from now until the June primary of next year. So get ready. If you're a candidate in one of these races, we're going to be reaching out to you soon. And I do think that we will get Senator Bennett and AG Weiser on the show to be interviewed too. I will just be recusing myself from those interviews because I've got a horse in the race.
We're not going to interview a horse, though, are we?
I don't know. It'd be kind of interesting to interview a horse, don't you think?
Yeah, we could try.
Canadian Jason Bain, a horse.
All right, but talk a little bit about health insurance in Colorado, because there's some not great news. It has been well documented that the big, beautiful bullshit budget bill is going to be devastating for millions of Americans who are going to lose access to healthcare coverage. The final version of that bill, if you remember, Republicans moved these cuts till after the 2026 midterm, which they were sort of hoping, I think, is enough time for you to forget that the pain is coming. Unfortunately for these Republicans, the rest of the country isn't waiting on this. The governor's office announced recently that health insurance companies have to submit how much they're going to, ask for premium increases in the next year.
They're regulated by the Colorado Division of Insurance. The Division of Insurance tends not to deny rate increases, but to your point, there is a transparency element where they say this is how much we're planning on increasing premium is by.
The premium increases are expected to average 28% in 2026.
Which basically erases all of the good work that was done by friend of the pod, Chris Kennedy, on the reinsurance bill that he came and talked to us about like 4 fucking years ago.
To put that in perspective, the 28% increase in the last 5 years, the highest one-year increase was 10.4% in 2023. This blows that out of the water. And if you look at it another way, say if you pay $400 a monthly premium for your health insurance, that's going to go up to at least $550, probably more, because it doesn't reflect cost increases that are going to happen because federal subsidies for the Affordable Care Act were also reduced in the Republican budget bill.
Competitive Pod, Purplish, Colorado Public Radio's politics podcast, had a great episode that posted this week that we'd encourage you all to listen to, and we'll drop the link in the show notes and on the Substack here. They went and interviewed a few folks who are on Medicaid or on the private market or vice versa about how they're looking at their lives. And there's this absolutely heartbreaking quote from this woman in the episode that says something like, well, right now, because of these subsidies, I'm able to afford health insurance for my kids. But when these rates go up, I'm going to have to pick health insurance or a roof over their heads. Jeez. This is the real choice going to be faced by a lot of people. And I believe that woman lived in Jeff Hurd's district.
And that's where things are going to be even worse. In the 3rd Congressional District in the Western Slope, they expect 38% premium increases.
Yeah, remember that when Jeff Hurd ad that was expanding healthcare in rural Colorado?
Yeah. Not so much, unless you mean expanding the cost. Maybe that's what he's going to go back and say. That's what he meant.
Yeah,
I'm going to help make things more expensive.
I would love to see that. Follow-up advertising. We're crushingly disappointed in the bread sandwich.
But man, this people are going to feel this well before the 2026 election.
And then even worse afterwards. So
Yep.
We talked last time about whether or not they were going to be able to kind of message their way through this, or I don't fucking think so, man. These guys are in charge. Things are going to start getting worse now. And then it's going to have all these domino effects, right? Like we talked about. It's not just that all of a sudden rural hospitals are going to close. It's going to be a slow boil where everyday people's experiences with their healthcare, be it public, private, or a combination of the two, is just going to become more and more miserable. Great job, everybody.
All right, let's talk a little bit about our dear leader, Captain Cankles.
I know we sometimes sound like millennials, but we are. Captain Cankles is pretty good, man.
That refers to some health problem Trump apparently has had recently. And there have been a lot of pictures online of some pretty enormous ankles the president has. We're not going to get into that. Instead, we're going to talk about Jeffrey Epstein.
I don't know. I kind of want to put the ankles on the YouTube, just see what they look like. You want to see them?
Yeah, sure. Let's check out the Cankles.
Right, hold on. Let's look. You just Google Trump ankles and oh my God,
those are
looks
big.
like he's wearing a fucking double ankle monitor, which he should be in any civilized society.
Oh man. So you and I had the same thought kind of independently earlier this week. I'll tell you what I was thinking, and I know, which is that I was watching Trump increasingly freak out about this stuff about Jeffrey Epstein. Remember last week we mentioned in the episode that they had come out and the administration said, oh, there are no Epstein files, which was just inexplicable given that
we should
the
all
Attorney General talked about them.
She said they're on my desk right now. They handed out little binders that said Epstein Files Phase 1 to right-wing influencers. There's fucking video and photographs of this entire thing.
Right. So the thought I had, and you had the same thought, is that this might actually be a thing that matters.
This
finally.
might actually do it.
Just because nothing has seemed to matter before in the Trump administration doesn't mean nothing will ever matter. And given the way that Trump is just freaking the fuck out about this.
Yeah, whenever he gets asked
think.
about it, it's a lot of humana, collar pulling sort of bad stuff. I want to put a fine point on your point, which is that G. Elliott Morris has this awesome Substack called Strength in Numbers, which is sort of replaced. It's the spiritual successor to 538. We used to use the 538 averages on this show a lot to demonstrate where aggregated approval ratings were right now. Look at this thing. I mean, Trump had a very short honeymoon period, which we've discussed, that kind of fell apart in the middle of February. But here we are. Look at this uptick on disapproval. He is now at 53.5% disapproval and 42.6% approval. That is a precipitous decline. And then what's even more interesting is on this matter in particular, new YouGov poll out yesterday, quote, should the government release all documents it has about the Jeffrey Epstein case? Yes, 79%. No, 4%. Of course, even 75% of Republicans say that they should. So this is a base splitter for the big orange guy. Bad news.
He spent more than a decade peddling conspiracy theories in order to attract supporters, and you can't turn that off just because you don't like how it's turning out.
He has been able to, in a somewhat shocking and regularly frustrating way, like create weather and then sell everybody on the idea that it no longer matters. This one, however, doesn't seem to be a place that he can get out of. Or at least not yet.
I think because it's simple. If Trump doesn't appear in the Epstein files, then why would he give a shit about releasing it?
everybody knows, even with a tangential like attention paid to Donald Trump, that if there's any ammo in there against any of his political opponents, he would be releasing them and waving them around and reading them out loud himself in press conferences. There is no fucking way this guy is not absolutely all over these things, which is why they're not getting released and being claimed to not exist.
Here's a good rundown of the problem for Trump from Midas Touch.
Charges that Jeffrey Epstein was running a sex trafficking ring in the early 2000s that included underage girls as young as 14 years old.
Donald Trump in 2002 said of Epstein, he's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side.
He routinely spoke fawningly of Jeffrey. He admired Epstein's lifestyle.
Your daughter, she's beautiful. Can I say this? A piece of it.
She's actually always been very voluptuous.
What does Tiffany have of Marlon?
She's got Marlon's legs. We don't know whether or not she's got this part yet.
You were playing tennis and you came off the court. Quote, look at that piece of I would love some of that. It so happened that Trump was referring to Cohen's then 15-year-old daughter.
I had the impression that he was interested in younger women and that, you know, women would age out for him.
Miss Teen Universe? Yeah, that's like giving Jeffrey Dahmer a cooking show.
I'll go backstage before a show, and everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. They're standing there with no question.
Donald Trump is heard making questionable comments about a young girl.
You're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years.
A lawsuit against the presumptive GOP nominee alleges he raped a girl when she was 13 years old.
Prince Andrew answering questions for the first time about his friendship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
I don't know Prince Andrew, but it's a tough story.
Trump has been photographed with Prince Andrew as far back as the year 2000.
Keelan Maxwell is accused of helping Epstein sexually abuse underage girls.
I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish her well.
You know about sexual predators and things like that. I mean,
you are one.
All right, I was going to say that, but it's true.
So
we fucking never should have got back here. We never should have got here to begin with.
No.
You think this might do it?
Based on his reactions, and we'll go through some of them here, I think it's possible. Here's what he did first, in response to questions after he claimed that there are no Epstein files.
This is a post from Truth Social, and I'm just going to read it for viewers can see it, but listeners. The radical left Democrats have hit pay dirt again. Just like with the fake and fully discredited Steele dossier, the lying 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, which the Democrats swore had come from Russia, no, it came from Hunter Biden's bathroom, and even the Russia scam itself, a totally fake and made-up story used in order to hide crooked Clinton's big loss in the 2016 presidential election. These scams and hoaxes are all the Democrats are good at. It's all they have. They're no good at governing, no good at policy, no good at picking winning candidates. Also, unlike Republicans, they stick together like glue. Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, and my past supporters have bought into this bullshit hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson and probably never will, even after being conned by the lunatic left for 8 long years. I have had more success in 6 months than perhaps any president in our country's history, and all these people want to talk about with strong prodding by the fake news and the success-starved Dems is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't even think about talking of our incredible and unprecedented success because I don't want their support anymore. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again.
I don't want their support anymore. That's his own base that he's freaking out about.
It's fucking flop sweat, man. Those are the rantings of a scared man.
And then a few days later, the Wall Street Journal reported on a letter that Trump sent to Epstein for his birthday. Here's MSNBC.
The big story tonight, the Wall Street Journal is out with new reporting about how Donald Trump sent Jeffrey Epstein a lewd letter for his 50th birthday. According to documents reviewed by the Journal, the letter bearing Trump's name contains several lines of typewritten text framed by the outline of a naked woman. A pair of small arcs denotes the woman's breasts, and the future president's signature is a squiggly Donald below her waist, mimicking pubic hair.
Ugh.
Inside the outline of this naked woman, the Journal reports that the letter from Trump to Epstein was styled as an imaginary conversation between the two. Voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything, the note began. Donald, yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey, nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald, enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Trump, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Now,
Yeah.
What
That's
the
fucking creepy.
fuck? So there's a couple things to unpack here, right? Number one is that this is the Wall Street Journal who got this stuff and published it. They know Donald Trump is a lawsuit happy guy that entities like CBS have bent the knee to, just firing Stephen Colbert just this week, ostensibly for having the balls to criticize their upper management for cutting a deal and bending the knee and essentially bribing Donald Trump with a settlement amount of money, right? Other news outlets have reached settlements with the president as well, which really do look like bribes. And Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal, who, let's face it, are at least ideological allies of the president, if not practical allies of the president, chose to run with this story. Jason, do you think they have the goods?
Yeah. Here's what Donald Trump said on Truth Social. Quote, the Wall Street Journal printed a fake letter supposedly to Epstein. These are not my words, not the way I talk. Also, I don't draw pictures. I told Rupert Murdoch it was a scam, that he shouldn't print this fake story, but he did, and now I'm going to sue his ass off and that of his third-rate newspaper. Thank you for your attention to this matter, DJT.
I wonder if the thank you to for your attention in this matter thing is like a tick. It's like a tell.
Yeah, it's got,
like at the poker table.
It's in everything. Like, but yeah, this, you don't threaten to sue. Like, if this was total bullshit, he would just be like, whatever, this is nonsense.
Yeah, there's a lot of protesting too much going on here, isn't there?
Way too much. I mean, he's been tweeting or, putting things on Truth Social and talking about this the entire week. And Trump's not a guy that lets things go if he's feels threatened. And I think,
of course not.
That's pretty clear here.
Yeah, he's trying to do the thing he's normally able to do, which is just yada, yada, yada through it and get everybody to rally behind him and call it fake news and a hoax, and then everybody picks up the ball and runs with it. That has not been the case with this specific instance, and it is interesting to wonder why.
Well, and you've even got people like Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. Here she is on something called The Benny Show, calling for a special prosecutor.
This guy looks like you ordered Stephen Woodrow from Wish.
So judicial committee hearing, that would be most likely the committee where Ghislaine Maxwell would testify. Would you be in favor of that?
Absolutely. Yes. Of course, we want answers. No one is satisfied with what has been received or lack thereof. No one is satisfied with the rollout of this. Of course, we've heard that Dan Bongino is not satisfied with the rollout of this either. And, I think you hear time and time again what an honorable stand-up man Dan Bongino is. President Trump, he obviously thinks highly of Attorney General Pam Bondi. I don't know her personally, but I know Dan. And he's a wonderful man, and I have no reason to doubt him. And I think moving forward, we need a special counsel. That has got to happen. There has to be a special investigation into this if we aren't going to be provided information. Now, there's a lot of things that Attorney General Pam Bondi is doing well. Of course, President Trump is doing many things well. The FBI is doing a great job. Our Department of Homeland Security is, this mass deportation machine on steroids, and now they have the funding to go after it even more.
Disgusting.
But this is something, I hope it doesn't become a false idol to Republicans where we just lose sight of everything else.
You got enough false
but that
idols.
doesn't mean we don't. There are plenty of good things to focus on, and still more that we need to do to really get through the next 4 years and hopefully the next 8 years in a Republican majority. God help us, God willing. And so this is certainly important, and I want answers. And maybe that takes that special counsel to do so. Maybe Matt Gaetz can lead the special counsel.
There it is.
I mean, he's got subject matter expertise, so that, not for. I know you think that's ridiculous, Jason, but he knows the game.
Yeah, that he does. He is very familiar with underage. This actually came up to a vote in the House recently on whether or not to release the Epstein files. And of course, Lauren Boebert, Jeff Hurd, and the rest of these chicken shit Republicans voted against releasing them because they're deathly afraid of President Trump. Here's Massachusetts Democratic Congressman Jim McGovern.
And favorite of the pod. We should just get him on, man. I know this
Yeah,
guy.
we
He
should.
rules. Yeah.
And once again, it's everyday people who paid the price. Now, let us end where we started, the Epstein files. Republicans can take a real vote today, a vote that will put them on the side of truth and justice, a vote to tell victims, we hear you, we see you, we will not protect the powerful at your expense. But instead, they are choosing cowardice. They are choosing obedience to Trump. And so they cooked up this non-binding resolution, a press release pretending to do something. So let's be clear. You either vote to release the files or you vote to bury them. And if every Republican votes to block our attempt to release the records, they are telling Epstein's victims, you don't matter as much as our political convenience. And that should disgust every single one of us.
Very well said.
He's the fucking best. He's a incredibly good communicator. Could you tell? That's for Republicans. The audience he's speaking to are these MAGA Republicans and these conspiracy theorists who are convinced that this is a real fucking thing and a real problem, and that is aimed as a direct wedge at that audience. Very smart stuff from McGovern.
Where this has ended up as of this recording is that Trump has announced that he thinks the Epstein grand jury testimony should be released. That would probably take weeks for a judge to approve and would probably only amount to a small fraction of the evidence and material that the FBI has amassed. This is Trump sort of backtracking, but trying to make sure whatever it is that obviously includes him isn't leaked out. I just don't see how he keeps this from blowing up at some point. There's too much at stake for somebody to not leak this eventually.
One of the scarier things about this is the first time the guy feels like he's been truly cornered in this term, at least. And I worry that he's going to lash out, and because his whole strategy is whenever he's in a pickle, distract with something crazy, something terrible, something awful. So either like ramping up ICE raids, ramping up war, ramping up attacks on Iran. I don't know, man, but I don't like the fact that this guy is currently cornered with no real options or off-ramps, even though I believe strongly that he is on the list and in those files and needs to be brought to justice again.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about a couple other things related to Trump, and then we'll move on here. The Senate and the House voted to cancel about $1.1 billion for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and about $8 billion for a variety of foreign aid programs. This is something
let's be clear. Republicans in the Senate and the House voted for these things, right? Democrats did fucking not.
This is called recissions. When the president asks Congress to pull back funding for things, it's the first time in decades that it's actually worked. Normally, this is a president will ask for this and Congress tells him to get bent, but Republicans, the only thing they're bending is a knee at this point.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
Hey.
and they that's really good. Sorry, your amazing wordplay froze my brain. It basically ends federal support for public programming as we know it. PBS, Colorado Public Radio, NPR, your local rural community radio station, and everything in between. And it basically finalizes the Elon Musk cuts to USAID and takes America out of the soft power game, if you're being cynical and I think realistic about it, and out of the here's why we're the good guys game across the globe, leaving a huge vacuum for China, Russia, or other folks that we don't necessarily share worldviews or values with to fill in. Bad fucking news.
And look at these goddamn cowards on the Republican side. Senate Armed Services Committee Chairman Roger Wicker of Mississippi voted for the rescissions, but said he was wary that the White House didn't provide enough information on what exactly will be cut. He said, quote, "Let's not make a habit of this," unquote.
Dickhead.
Jesus. But I'll do it if they ask.
They'll do anything if they ask. Although, worth noting is that hopefully, maybe, this Epstein shit will start to create some distance, permission structures, and other courageous tools for Republicans to use to actually stop Donald Trump and his harmful agenda.
That's right. The other issue that has come up recently that is a little freaky is that Donald Trump was in Texas touring the flood damage, and he announced that he wants Republicans in that state to do their own redistricting, to gerrymander things to such an extent that Republicans could potentially keep hold of the House in 2026.
This from AP reporter, I believe, based in Colorado, Nick Riccardi and Joey Cappelletti, literally just comes right out and says it. I would like you to get 5 more seats. Texas will be the biggest one, and that'll be 5. They are reverse engineering their majority by trying to gerrymander a number of states outside of cycle. You're supposed to do this every 10 years after the census to just go ahead and rig themselves up an election. It is very similar to that go find me a couple thousand votes in Georgia thing, but this time it's go find me a couple extra congressional seats. I think that the less informed look at this would be that he wants to maintain his majority in Congress to keep moving his agenda forward. I think what he really wants is to avoid another fucking impeachment.
Potentially, and it's not clear what can be done about this. California Governor Gavin Newsom says his state will respond maybe and do the same thing, though I don't know if they can. Colorado's got the same problem or a similar problem because we have an independent redistricting commission that independent in name only because it consistently ends up giving Republicans an unfair advantage. In Colorado, for example, Republicans haven't won a major statewide race since, before 2014, since 2010, really. Since 2014.
Yeah, it was Cory Gardner on 14, yeah.
We have a 50 split in our congressional delegation right now, which is not at all reflective of voter intent in Colorado.
I mean, the other thing is, there are constitutional questions I don't know about how California works, the state of New York works, that theoretically, even if you have an independent commission whose job it is to do your decennial, your every 10 years redistricting, the legislature does have the ability to pass laws and draw maps whenever they want to. I'm not encouraging Colorado's legislature to go in there and gerrymander a map. I don't think that's a very good thing for democracy, and I think we should live our own values. But there is an open question about
the point is, what do you do?
Right?
You can't,
I don't know.
Yeah, do you let them just wreck everything and refuse to do it because you're holding out
because we play by the rules and they fucking don't? It's a hard question. I don't know. I don't want to live in a country where that happens, but I also think that if New York and California want to go ahead and play the same game as Texas, those are similarly sized states. Colorado, we would net 1 by doing it. That doesn't seem worth it ethically to me. No. But New York and California, where you could counterbalance the 5 that Texas is just stealing off the map, fucking maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm leaning more toward it. I hate to say it, but you can't just sit on your hands if
they're stealing the country. We shouldn't stop them. Hard argument to make.
They're also trying to apparently see what they can steal in terms of election equipment. The Trump administration and its allies have launched a multi-pronged effort to gather data on voters and inspect voting equipment. And here in Colorado, we've become kind of the major point in this story because there's a consultant named Jeff Small, a former aide to Lauren Boebert, now a principal at 76 Group, which is the big Republican consulting firm run by Josh Penry here in Colorado. Small apparently has been going around to county clerks saying, the White House would like me to see if you can open up your computers for us.
This is pretty wacky shit.
What?
Let's go to friend of the pod, Kyle Clark, for a little rundown of what's going on here.
It looks like the Trump administration is trying to get insider access to voting systems in Colorado, perhaps related to their quest to free a former GOP election clerk currently in prison for tampering with election systems. The Colorado County Clerks Association says 10 Republican clerks got an odd request last week from a GOP political strategist named Jeff Small. He's a consultant with the Denver-based 76 Group and a former chief of staff for Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. Multiple city clerks say that Small told them that he was working with the White House and that he was reaching out to Republican clerks in blue states to make sure those states were complying with President Trump's executive orders on elections. Small asked some of the clerks whether they would allow a third-party vendor to access their voting equipment to test for vulnerabilities.
And he goes, well, what we're looking for is partnerships to come in and basically try to infiltrate your election system to see if there's any gaps. That is where I was a dead stop. I said, absolutely not.
I told him that the U.S. Constitution didn't give the executive authority to the president to control elections, and that until the Supreme Court ruled that the executive order can, or the president has the power through executive order to manipulate elections, that I wasn't interested in letting anybody access any of my equipment.
Those Republican clerks reported the incident to the State County Clerks Association. Executive Director Matt Crane told us all the clerks followed state law and rejected the request for access.
Important that these county clerks are stepping up and said, look, this is our job. It's not your job. We take this very seriously. We're not going to break the law because of what is federal overreach.
Both Crane, who you heard from there, and the clerks we spoke to said they have never received a similar request like this for access to their voting systems from the federal government. Crane with the Clerks Association says he has spoken to election leaders in other states, and no one else has reported similar requests from the Trump administration to get inside election systems. Full disclosure, that GOP strategist involved, Jeff Small, he used to work at 9 News in a non-journalism role more than a decade ago before he started his career in politics.
Wowza.
Man, good on those Republican county clerks for telling
You
them
got to
take
give
a
him
lake.
credit. Justin Grantham in Fremont County,
Mhm.
Matt Crane, former Republican, I think Arapahoe County clerk who leads the association, and the fella down in Colorado Springs and El Paso County. It's really hard to say no to someone who says they represent the White House when you know what Donald Trump does to people who says no to them. Good on you all for standing up, doing your jobs, and protecting democracy. Not easy in this environment.
I love this quote from Steve Schleicher, the clerk and recorder in El Paso County, who said, I'm sitting here going, there's a person spending 9 years in prison here in Colorado for doing the exact same thing, unquote. Talking about Tina Peters, of course.
And he ain't going to jail with her.
Nope.
Nice when you enforce the law and it has, among other things, one of its intended consequences, which is deterrence.
Yes. All right, let's do a couple of quick hits and then we'll get out of here. For our fuck around and find out of the week, here's Fox News trying to fuck around with California Democratic Representative Eric Swalwell.
This guy's really, really, really good. You don't want to step to Eric Swalwell if you aren't ready. Ready?
Don't wear masks in our community. You're terrorizing women. Real men don't terrorize women.
Did you wear a mask in 2020?
Look, for health reasons, I'm not a cop. So, whatever cute gotcha you think you have there.
They're protecting themselves.
But look, do you know anyone who gets more threats than me? These ICE agents aren't getting more threats than me.
Jesse Waters probably gets a little more threats.
Well, Jesse Waters, not a real man. Don't wear.
Every one of those things, just fuck you.
Well played. Barb Kirkmeyer, the state senator, Republican, potentially candidate for governor.
Yeah, widely reported to be considering a gubernatorial run that will not be successful.
Really needs to stop talking. She keeps insisting that Colorado is overspending, despite Tabor and constitutional requirements that balance the budget every year, as her way of getting around answering questions about the Republican budget bill in Congress. She keeps saying, it's not that we're going to cut Medicaid and all this. It's that we're overspending in Colorado, which is just not true.
No, it was a convenient talking point before the big bullshit bill passed, where you could kind of make the argument that is the case. But now that all these cuts are coming down and there's probably going to have to be a special legislative session to balance the budget again, sorry, doesn't pass muster anymore.
Here's I think a simple question for Kirkmeyer that someone should ask her. Do you believe that Medicaid should get more or less funding? Period.
Oh, that's a good one because they don't really get asked that, right? They go and say, to kick able-bodied men off the rolls, or people who are taking advantage of the system, or waste, fraud, and abuse, none of which is like a significant portion of the overall spending. This is fucking healthcare for poor people.
Yep.
And a lot of them are in her district.
Absolutely. Another big project of Republicans that is not aging very well is the immigration crackdown. As the Colorado Sun reports, immigration arrests quadrupled in Colorado and almost tripled in Wyoming since Trump took office in January.
And they're all criminals, right? Gangsters, not grandmas, as Gabish Evans told us, right, Jason? They're just rounding up gangs and human traffickers and drug dealers and cartels, right? Right, Jason?
The thing is, new data shows that most people arrested by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement between January 20th and June 26th of this year in Colorado and Wyoming did not have any criminal convictions. The most serious crime, most often noted by ICE, is drunken driving. They are not arresting criminals for whatever reason.
There's this chart in this Colorado Sun article that you should go look at, and it says the criminal history of Wyoming immigration arrests 2024 to 2025 and criminal history of Colorado immigration arrests, same period. We'll focus on our state here for a second. 2024, 61% of people had a criminal conviction. 2025, 39%. In 2024, pending criminal charges, 18%. 2025, 28%. And just an immigration violation is the only thing they're actually catching people on, which is actually not a deportable offense.
And finally, our gibberish of the week. Here's one of our regular featured speakers, White House Advisor Peter Navarro, with a silly new explanation of why tariffs are just great.
I do like that. Like the first reply is this account called the Trumpstein Files, and the account is called He Knew and Flew.
And what we know, Will, is that when we put tariffs on, the foreign countries, particularly the ones that depend on us the most, they have to eat the tariffs. So tariffs, they're not tax hikes, they're tax cuts. We've had $100 billion so far we've raised in 6 months. We're going to have trillions over the 10 years, and that's going to pay for the big, beautiful bill, tax cuts and debt reduction by the tune of about $2 trillion. We like
Peter,
where we're at.
Wall Street.
And what we know, Will.
What?
My favorite Orwellian statement ever in the fucking universe is tariffs aren't tax hikes, they're tax cuts. No one's even tried to lie like that before, so you gotta give them credit.
The only people paying the tariffs are Americans. We know this.
It's a sales tax increase. It is the largest sales tax increase on Americans in the history of the country, and it's coming in the form of Trump's stupid ass tariffs.
We've raised $100 billion from Americans.
We haven't raised anything. You've taken it out of people's pockets and put it in yours. And then, we didn't even get into the fact that, meat prices are through the fucking roof. Where's all the breathless articles about that? Where's the wall-to-wall coverage about inflation that's going up and up and up? Only when Democrats are in charge these questions get asked. When it's Donald Trump, it's all about the Epstein files. So good job, everybody.
All right, that's it for us this week.
The Get More Smarter podcast is a production of ColoradoPolls.com and the Bighorn Company. Your hosts are me, Ian Silverian, America's dad,
Jason Bay,
who somehow managed to figure out how to engineer and produce this thing. Megan makes the video. Thanks, Megan. I do all the other shit. She does a lot of other shit. We all do a lot of shit. Breakmaster Cylinder made the theme song. Thank you so much for listening. This Breakmaster Cylinder made the theme song. Get your shots while you still can. Protect your trans kids, your autistic kids, your immigrant kids, and any other kids in your life, really. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get the podcast. Rate the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if you got more smarter. It actually helps us a lot. Find us at getmoresmarter.com where you can sign up for bonus content in our Substack. And please send all anger rants and non-anger rants to angerrants at getmoresmarter.com. Other stuff at Ian at getmoresmarter.com and other stuff to Jason at getmoresmarter.com. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.